Born and raised in Nashville, North Carolina, Phil Valentine thought he'd be a lawyer, just like his father and just like his grandfather. But something happened shortly after Phil arrived at East Carolina State University. A friend noted Phil had a deep voice and asked, "Why don't you get into radio?" That simple question hit Phil like a lightning bolt and changed his life forever. Within a year, he landed his first job in radio. Phil spent several years at North Carolina radio stations, but Phil had his eye on the Music City. He packed up everything he owned and moved to Nashville on faith.
I'm going to move to Nashville without a job. I'm going to be there when that next job opens at 96 Kiss. So I came out to Nashville and got a job selling memberships at a health club, and then went over and talked to the guy that had hired me and then not hired me. And I said, "Look, I'm in town." He said, "Well, gosh, we need weekend folks."
That part-time job became full-time in 3 months' time, and Phil was back in the radio business.
They had a big meeting with all of the staff, and they said, "We got some news we want to tell you. And we got a way to turn this thing back around and take it back to where it was." And the door opened up, and Vic Rumor came walking in. And people were just beside themselves. And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to work for Vic Rumor, the man." Well, I wanted to get that morning show back, and he went in. The first thing he did was he blew out the morning guy, and they went on a search. They were looking, and the way he always did, he made, everything was bigger than life. We're doing a national search for the morning show, and so. And I went to him and I said, "I did mornings." He said, "I know." And I looked at your ratings and they weren't too hot. And I said, "Well, the whole station sucked at the time. I mean, you're rebuilding this thing. I'm your guy."
But Vic, who is also in the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame, just didn't believe him. So Phil got creative.
I said, "Alan, let me on, man. I got to get on this radio station. I want to do talk radio." He said, "No, man. I mean, you're unproven. I mean, you're on the FM. You do a great job." And so finally, he got a phone call from whoever was supposed to do a show on Saturday morning. And they said they weren't going to be there, and he was going to be out of town, or I guess he would have jumped in. And he hung up the phone, and he looked up, and I was standing in the doorway. He says, "You want your chance? You're on tomorrow morning." I said, "Great." And he came to me on Monday. He said, "We're firing what's his name, we're putting you in." I went, "Well, I'm doing afternoons on the FM." He said, "Well, we're going to put you in the morning."
Phil did double duty. He hosted the morning talk show on WLAC AM and the afternoon music show on WLAC FM. In 1995, Gaylord Entertainment bought a struggling talk station out of bankruptcy. Familiar with Phil's earlier work in talk radio, WTN offered him the job as morning host. Leaving a highly successful music morning show on WLAC FM was a big gamble, but Phil rolled the dice. The gamble paid off. The Phil Valentine Show debuted on WTN in June of 1995 and found an instant audience, drawing more listeners than both competing morning talk shows combined. After several years on WTN, Phil made the big move to the city of brotherly love for a while. There, he became the most listened to talk show in Philadelphia. But as is the age-old story in radio, the station was sold and the new owners had different ideas of how to run things.
They decided they want a Howard Stern sound-alike, so they punched my ticket.
Phil would have nothing of it and resigned. In 1998, Phil made the journey back to the city he loved, blowing into town on the very same day a series of tornadoes blew through downtown Nashville. He slipped into his new job like an old shoe and quickly began his ascent back on top of the Nashville radio ratings on 1510 WLAC. Phil made a national name for himself by helping lead the now famous Tennessee tax revolt. Phil joined other talk show hosts in taking on Tennessee's Republican governor and Democratic legislator as they tried, time and again, to push through a state income tax. But in December of 2003, Phil announced to his stunned audience he was leaving WLAC after 5.5 years. He spent his 6-month hiatus writing a book. Phil returned to the radio on July the 8th, 2004 on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. And within 3 months, he was back on top as the most listened to political commentator in Nashville, local or syndicated. His second book, Tax Revolt, was released in March of 2005. His third, The Conservative's Handbook, was released in 2008. On January 27, 2012, Rocky Mountain Pictures released Phil's documentary, An Inconsistent Truth in theaters. Since then, the movie has won 3 film festivals, including the Nevada Film Festival. It was released on DVD in 2013 and shot immediately to the #1 position on Amazon.com's documentary chart. It's the 20th top-grossing nature documentary at the box office in U.S. history. Phil had a cameo role in the 2014 movie Atlas Shrugged 3, Who is John Galt? He also had a supporting role in the movie The Secret Handshake, starring Kevin Sorbo. Phil Valentine's impact on the world of talk radio and conservative commentary cannot be overstated. Through his engaging radio show, compelling books, and active participation in political discourse, he has left a lasting mark on the history of Tennessee, Tennessee radio, and beyond.
Hey, it's Dave Ramsey. I had the honor of calling Phil Valentine a friend for over 25 wonderful years. We both started talk radio together on WTN in Nashville back in the golden days of talk radio. He came from another kind of radio, and I came from didn't know anything. But both of us kind of blew up in Nashville at the same time. We started with these humble beginnings as radio rookies. Phil and I and a couple of others took on the state income tax in the state of Tennessee. We fought together. We laughed together a lot. We shared a few cigars here and there. And talk radio is about helping people, and that's exactly what Phil did with his platform. He helped people every day in Nashville and in markets all across the U.S. Radio, Tennessee, the United States, and certainly those of us that love Phil are lesser today without Phil joining us for our drive home. But now the name Phil Valentine will live forever among the titans of our industry in a state that's had quite a big impact on radio across the world. My wife Sharon and I wish we could be there to honor Phil today in person. Susan, Carr, Campbell, Douglas. Again, our hearts go out to you, and the next time we see you, we're going to give you another big bear hug. We love you, and Phil, my buddy, we're going to miss you, and congratulations on this huge honor. God bless Phil Valentine.